mean, the other one that's held up pretty well is 360 as well. So similar sort of chart here. Look how tight that is. That's a pretty nice move here. And this is sort of largely gone sort of sideways in here so far. So again, not too much volume in these declines in here. Pretty light all the way through here. Some okay volume, some good volume all the way through up here. So again, this is another one just to keep an eye on. And this is sort of the, if we think about, I remember there was an old sort of, I read this book there once called, it was called back the Foldback Technique, and it's like a double bottom or a head and shoulders there. Basically, so there's a point in the chart there where it'll mirror how it traded into that position, that point. It'll trade out exactly the same way. So if you look at that 29th of June, how it traded into that point, it's traded out the same. So that sort of lower high, this lower high in here, traded out to the same level here as well, and then sort of congested back, and then it's gone back up to around the same high previously, congested back, gone back for another retest again. So this suggests we might weaken off back into this sort of range in here, and then go back. And that's just an interesting theory. And I read this book about this Foldback technique, and I just, initially I sort of laughed at it, but then but then I just started seeing it. Charts just started, so I know some technical patterns like head and shoulders and double tops. I mean, double tops is actually one of the worst trading records in terms of this. It's got one of the highest failure rates of any pattern. So it's not the best pattern there, but I have noticed this Foldback technique is you'll see sometimes stocks will trade into a point and they trade out exactly the way they traded, how they traded into that point there. It was just something, it was an observation I've seen over the years, and it's just, since reading that book, it just horrified me how often that actually really occurred. And
so your line of symmetry is kind of the low, is it? And then it's through to fold to the right of that line of symmetry. It's almost like it's doing what it did on the way in.
So this book and this sort of theory was that we'll fold back to, similar around. It doesn't go exactly perfectly, but suggesting there we might come back into the 440, 450 zone there, and then start to work away. At some point, it stops following the technique, but oftentimes I start sort of seeing it trade out the same way it traded in that point. I thought, that's interesting, and then it just tends to follow these sort of patterns all the time. I guess it makes sense, because obviously these are sort of places where people got in, so all of a sudden if they get back to the square, they probably start to get out of there. So it's just a really interesting sort of theory, and as I say, it's just one that I, again, initially sort of dismissed, but over the years I've just found it just happens over and over again, very, very similar.